Hello, and welcome to Titanic as the Days Go By. My name is DK, and I'll be your host with this series. We will be going over the most important days of Titanic from her sea trials, maiden voyage from Southampton, her days at sea, iceberg collision, the sinking, rescue from the Carpathia, and all the way to the survivor disembarkment at New York. At 2:20 a.m., the RMS Titanic, who is bound to New York City on her maiden voyage, lost her battle and tragically sank to the North Atlantic Ocean 2 hours and 40 minutes after a collision with an iceberg, stranding 1,496 passengers into the freezing cold North Atlantic Ocean. Carpathia arrived in at the same ice field as the Titanic did, and the crew spotted a green light and headed towards the area of where that light was. They began shooting off flares to let Titanic passengers know that help has arrived. The first lifeboat to reach Carpathia was lifeboat number 2, and this lifeboat was brought aboard at 4:10 a.m. as the sun rises over the North Atlantic. More lifeboats roared toward the Carpathia, knowing they had survived the ordeal. 712 were rescued from the Titanic disaster. Once they were brought up on board, They were provided warm blankets, hot drinks, and a place to rest. Others opted to stay up on deck to look out in the ocean for their loved ones. Joseph Boxhall would describe his conversation with Arthur Rostron in an interview with BBC in 1962.
And eventually the boat emptied, and then I went up to the Captain Rostron on the bridge. And he said, where's the ship? I said, she's sunk. And I said, I don't know where the other boats are. I've not seen any of them. But they'd be all to the southern of us somewhere.
As Carpathia did scan through the site, there were no other survivors from the Titanic disaster within the exception of those in the lifeboats before boarding Carpathia. No other survivor could be found in the water. Harold Cottam notified all ships on the wireless system, letting them know what happened to Titanic. Another ship, the SS Californian, arrived near Carpathia's general location and asked if it can do anything to help. But what has been done has already been done. Carpathia tells California that there is nothing for them to do but to resume course as Carpathia is preparing to leave the area. This photograph you see is taken on deck of the Carpathia, shows Californian before the ship left. Californian stayed behind to look for any signs of life, but unfortunately only dead bodies and wreckage littered the debris field. California would leave and resume course. Before the Carpathia left to go to where they need drop-off passengers, a key passenger by the name of Bernice Palmer, aged 17 years old at the time and armed with a Kodak box brownie that she either got for Christmas in 1911 or for her birthday on January 10th, took photographs of Titanic survivors that were on board the Carpathia. She even took a photograph of this suspected iceberg that sank the Titanic, but there has been other candidates, such as Captain W. Wood's photo that was taken on the SS Estonian during the day of April 14th. He inadvertently dated this photo 1913 rather than the correct year. And this photo taken by Captain Wood was sold at an auction in 2020. Another photo that popped up was taken by Mr. Linoleowald, who is the chief steward of the SS Prince Adalbert. He jotted down a visible smear of paint that was visible on this iceberg. Today, Bernice Palmer's Kodak Brownie box camera is on display at the Smithsonian since 1986 after she donated her camera and photos. As the Carpathia has Titanic survivors, they wondered what to do with them. Take them back to New York City or transfer them on another White Star Line vessel. Another ship, the RMS Olympic, was steaming towards the general location where Titanic went down, unaware that the ship was already been gone. Olympic transmitted to Carpathia asking if they could take the Titanic survivors back to New York City. Captain Rostron ran this by Bruce Ismay, and Ismay declined the idea and ordered the Olympic to resume course to Southampton. As Captain Herbert Haddock heard the news of Titanic, he ordered all flags on the ship to be lowered at half-mast as a show of respect, and all band performances on the ship has been cancelled. In his mind, a tragedy has happened. The decline of Olympic's offer is that it is not only due to distance, but it was due to the fact that the ship is near identical to the carbon copy of Titanic, and seeing the ship pull up near Carpathia would cause great distress and panic among the passengers. On April 17th, the light cruiser, the USS Chester, escorted the Carpathia to New York. Cottam, by then assisted by Harold Bride, started to transmit names of the third-class survivors to the Chester. Carpathia encountered heavy thunderstorms and fog since the early morning of Tuesday, April 16, 1912, a sombering tone as Carpathia slowly begins to make her way to New York City. Carpathia arrived in New York City on April 18, 1912, first by having third-class passengers disembark onto tenders for Ellis Island. Carpathia made her way to the White Star Line Pier, Pier 59, which is Titanic's original location. Photographers witnessed the lowering of the boats into this pier, to which is now the realization is starting to set in. And the last of the remaining passengers disembarked at Pier 54, which is Cunard Pier. While these people did survive, their lives were altered forever. Not one person was unaffected, and they had to carry the memory and the horror for the rest of their lives. Afterwards, the United States and British Titanic inquiries were underway. While we're not going to have a bonus part for this to cover the inquiries entirely, we have done a video about this in the past, which you can check out, but we can make this short and simple. The U.S. Senate inquiry, chaired by Senator William Alden Smith, took place in April and May of 1912, as this involved extensive testimonies from survivors, crew members, and experts in maritime safety and shipbuilding. This inquiry also uncovered shortcomings in the ship's design, construction and safety measures, including the insufficient number of lifeboats and the lack of coordination. The British Board of Trade inquiry, chaired by Lord Mersey, commenced after the United States Senate inquiry and lasted from May to July in 1912. The findings of both Titanic inquiries played a massive role and both highlighted the need for improved regulations regarding lifeboat capacity and safety equipment, along with proper training in handling emergency situations, as the loss of life could have been minimized with better organization and preparedness. After the sinking of the Titanic, lessons were learned from this disaster. In the wake of the tragedy, governments worldwide enacted sweeping reforms aiming at bolstering maritime safety. These would include mandates for more stringent ships construction standards, improving crew training, and establishment of regulatory bodies with overseeing maritime operations. The Radio Act of 1912 was enacted to regulate usage of the wireless communication at sea, ensuring that ships maintained constant contact with shore stations and other vessels on a 24/7 period. And one of the most enduring lessons of this tragedy was the sufficient lifeboat capacity. The inadequate number of lifeboats, along with the ineffective deployment procedures, resulted in a massive loss of life. Ships such as the Olympic, Lusitania, and the Mauretania were fitted with enough lifeboats for every passenger and crew on board. In 1914, the International Ice Patrol was formed to prevent a maritime disaster caused by icebergs like what we saw with the Titanic. Multiple nations gathered together to monitor and track icebergs in the North Atlantic. Today, from cutters to C-130s, the International Ice Patrol provide vital information and real-time tracking to ships that transit through the region. While the sinking of the Titanic served as a catalyst, future sinkings underscore the need for vigilance and improvement of maritime practices. Subsequent sinkings, such as the Empress of Ireland and Lusitania in 1914 and 1915 respectively. Today, the wreck of the Titanic lays 2.5 miles down in the North Atlantic Ocean in harsh environments, with both sections 600 meters apart from each other. Discovered in 1985 by a joint American-French expedition, this wreck is a quiet solemn memorial to the lives lost, and at the same time continues to be a subject of scientific inquiry and exploration. From 1987 to the 90s, artifact recovery efforts has been conducted, bringing over 1,800 artifacts. Since 1987, more than 5,500 artifacts has been recovered, including the notorious Big Piece, a 15-ton section of the ship's hull that was recovered in 1997. As the years pass by, the story of the Titanic did not fade. It deepens. What was once breaking news in 1912 had become something far more enduring, a symbol of human ambition, of fragility, and of the lives forever changed in a single night. The steel that once gleamed proudly at the edge of modern progress now rests in silence, reclaimed by the ocean that both carried and claimed her. But Titanic was never just a ship. She was the laughter echoing through the first-class halls, hope that carried in the third-class dreams. Duty was held firm on the bridge, and love that refused to let go, even in the face of the unimaginable. As the days go by, we are reminded that history is not only written in grand events, but in the quiet, human moments within them. The courage to stand, the instinct to help, the choice to stay. Time moves forward, but generations come and go. Yet Titanic remains, etched not in just records, but in memory. And perhaps that is her greatest legacy. Not how she fell, but how she is remembered. A memory of the near 1,500 souls who lost their lives on the night of April 14 to 15 of 1912. Passengers and crew, they were both rich and poor, dreamers, workers, families, and friends. They all came from different parts of the world, yet in their final hours they share the same fate beneath the cold Atlantic sky. We remember the bravery of those who gave up their places, the band who played on, the crew who stood their ground, the countless unnamed heroes whose stories were never been fully told. As the days go by, we do not forget them. We honor them, and we carry their stories forward, so that way they may live on, not just in tragedy, but in remembrance.